She fell before the arrow could be understood. A flash of silver cutting through the dense forest air, the taut thrum of the bowstring, and then the dull thud of her body hitting the damp ground, swallowed by moss and pain. No one knew her name. No one asked. To all, she was just the quiet Omega who served in the narrow halls of Blackthorn Keep. The awakening came slowly, as if she were emerging from a lake of thick mud. The first thing she felt was the smell. Burnt wood, bitter incense, something dense and masculine that permeated the air like a physical presence. Then came the pain, sharp, throbbing in her left shoulder as if someone had plunged red-hot iron into her flesh. She tried to move and her entire body protested, every muscle tense, every nerve screaming. She opened her eyes slowly. The ceiling was high, made of dark stone, with thick wooden beams spanning the space. Tall candles burned in iron candelabras, casting dancing shadows on the walls. She had never seen this place. She had never been in a room so large, so imposing. The mattress beneath her was too soft, the sheets too fine. Everything here reeked of power, of wealth, of something that was not for her. She tried to sit up and dizziness washed over her. She clutched her head with her right hand, and that's when she felt it. A slight burn on the nape of her neck, a strange heat pulsing beneath her skin. Her fingers brushed the spot and she gasped. Something was there. A mark. Fresh. Painful. As if someone had branded fire onto the base of her neck. Panic came swiftly, tightening her chest, stealing her breath. She pulled the sheet, wrapping herself in. It as if she could disappear. The room was empty, but the feeling of being watched was so strong that she scanned every corner, searching for eyes in the shadows. The door opened without warning. He entered like a contained storm. Firm steps, broad shoulders, a presence that sucked the air from the room. The Alpha King. She recognized him instantly, even though she had never been close to him before. Everyone in Blackthorn Keep knew who he was. Everyone felt when he passed, even without seeing him. It was as if space itself bent around him. He stopped. In the middle of the room, his golden eyes fixed on her. He said nothing. He only watched like someone studying a strange creature, something that shouldn't exist. The silence was heavy, dense, almost painful. She gripped the sheet tighter, trying to hide, trying to make herself smaller. He crossed his arms. The candlelight danced on his face, highlighting every angle, every shadow. He had a thin scar tracing his left eyebrow, another cutting his chin. His dark hair was pulled back, revealing a broad forehead, hard features. He looked sculpted from stone, unmoving, impenetrable. But his eyes burned. "You should be dead," he said, his voice low, raspy, as if he had spent hours screaming. The arrow was poisoned, black hemlock venom, kills in minutes, devours the blood from within until nothing remains. She swallowed hard but did not respond. She had never learned to respond. Answers were dangerous. Answers brought attention, and attention brought pain. He took a step forward, then another. Every movement was calculated, controlled, but there was something fierce just beneath the surface. Something wild he held back with invisible chains. "You threw yourself in front of the arrow," he continued, stopping a few feet from the bed. "Why?" She looked away. Her hands trembled beneath the sheet. She didn't know how to answer because even she didn't understand. It had been instinct, impulse, something that pushed her before thought could catch up. She saw the arrow cutting through the air, saw the glint of the silver tip aimed at him, and her body moved on its own. "Look at me." The order came firm, but it wasn't shouted. It didn't need to be. The weight of his voice was enough. She slowly raised her eyes, forcing herself to face that countenance that seemed forged of authority and contained fury. He leaned down, resting his hands on his knees, bringing himself to her level. The proximity was suffocating. She could see every detail, the fine lines around his eyes, his locked jaw, the pulse beating strongly at the side of his neck. She could feel his warmth, his scent, the presence that filled every empty space. "You know what I did, don't you?" he asked, almost whispering. "You feel it." She touched the nape of her neck again, unintentionally, and saw the corner of his mouth twitch. It wasn't a smile. It was something darker. Recognition. Confirmation. "I marked you," he said, the words heavy as falling stones. "I bit you. I created a bond. It was the only way to keep you alive. The venom was killing you too fast, and I had to push my power into you, force your body to fight. But the price of that—" He moved away, ran a hand over his face, let out a harsh breath. "The price is that you are now tied to me. Marked. Claimed." The words echoed in the room like distant thunder. She felt the world tilt, slide, as if the ground had vanished beneath her. Marked. Claimed. These words had meaning. These words changed everything. An Omega marked by an Alpha was no longer free. She was property, a permanent bond, a sealed fate. And she had been marked by the king. "I didn't ask for this," she managed to say, her voice hoarse, broken. These were the first words she had spoken aloud in weeks, perhaps months. He turned to her, his eyes shining with something dangerous. "Do you think I asked for this? Do you think I wanted you here in my bed, bearing my mark, bound to me in a way even I can't undo?" His voice rose, not in a shout but in intensity. "You threw yourself in front of death. You chose this." "I didn't choose anything," she replied, and this time her voice came out firmer, fueled by something she didn't know she possessed. "I just—" "Just what?" he cut in, coming closer again, invading her space without permission. "Just decided to die for a king you've never spoken to? Just decided to sacrifice your life for someone you don't even know?" She took a deep breath, feeling the burn on her nape pulse in response to his proximity. It was as if her body recognized his presence, responded to it, bent towards him without permission. "I know you," she said, softly but clearly. "Everyone knows you. You are the Alpha who saved the kingdom from war. The king who brought peace where there was only bloodshed. Everyone talks about you. Everyone fears me," he completed, his voice returning to a low, controlled tone. "That's different from knowing." He moved away again, went to the window and stared out. The moonlight streamed in faintly, outlining half of his face in silver. He looked tired, older than he actually was, as if carrying the weight of 1,000 lives on his back. "You know nothing about me," he said to the night, "and I know nothing about you. But now we are bound. You feel it? I know you do. The bond. It's there, pulsing like a thread that will never break." She closed her eyes, trying to block the sensation, but it was useless. It was there, yes. A constant presence, warm, vibrating at the base of her neck, extending throughout her body, as if a part of him had entered her and made a home. The door opened again, this time without ceremony. A woman entered, tall, dressed in noble fabrics, her blonde hair styled in elaborate braids. She had a beautiful face, but her eyes were cold, calculating. She swept the room with her gaze, stopped at the Omega wrapped in the sheet, and her upper lip curled into something between disgust and amusement. "So it's true," she said, her voice sharp as glass. "The great Alpha King marked a servant, a scullery Omega, a nobody." The king turned slowly and the air in the room grew cold. "Leave, Bethany. Leave!" She let out a short, humorless laugh. "You create the biggest scandal in the kingdom and expect me to just leave? The entire council is in an uproar. The Pax are questioning your sanity. And you—" She pointed at the Omega with disdain. "You chose her." "I chose nothing," he said, each word hard as steel. "She threw herself in front of a poisoned arrow meant to kill me. I saved her. End of story." "You marked her." Bethany spat the word like venom. "You claimed her. You created a sacred bond with an Omega of no name, no lineage, no worth. Do you know what this means? Do you know what you've just done? The king took a step towards her, and Bethany instinctively recoiled. His aura filled the space, heavy, threatening. I know exactly what I did, and if you or any other member of the council dares to question it again, you will find there are consequences. Bethany opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Finally, she turned and left, slamming the door shut. The silence returned, but now it was different, denser, more dangerous. The king returned to the bed, looking at the Omega for a long moment. You've just entered a game you don't understand. And He hesitated, ran a hand through his hair. I don't know if I can protect you from it. She clutched the sheet tightly, feeling fear rise in her throat. From whom? He didn't answer. He just held her gaze, and in that moment she saw something she didn't expect to see in a king's eyes. Fear. Not for himself. For her. She spent the entire night awake, huddled in the enormous bed, listening to the sounds of the keep. Distant footsteps in the corridors. Muffled voices seeping through thick walls, the wind rattling the windows as if trying to get in. And above all, the constant sensation of the mark on her nape, warm, alive, pulsing in sync with something she couldn't name. The king didn't return. She felt when he was near, the bond warned her, igniting something within her that recognized his presence even through walls and distance. But he never entered, never came. It was as if he was avoiding her, or avoiding what she represented. On the fourth night, she woke with a scream caught in her throat. The nightmare had been violent. Flames devouring everything, screams cutting through the night, hands pulling at her, distorted voices calling a name she couldn't recall. She woke up sweating, trembling, her heart hammering in her chest. She got out of bed, went to the window. Outside, the world slept under a blanket of fog. The moon was hidden, the sky black and starless. She rested her forehead against the cold glass, closed her eyes, tried to push the images away. But they always returned, fragments of something she couldn't piece together, a large house, gardens, laughter, and then fire. So much fire. The door opened without warning. She turned quickly, her heart racing. It was him, the king. But something was different. He looked tired, his shoulders slightly slumped, his face marked by something she couldn't name. Pain, perhaps, or guilt. Are you all right? He asked, and there was genuine urgency in his voice. She blinked, confused. How did you... The bond, he said, entering and closing the door. I felt your panic. I felt something was wrong. He looked at her, really looked, and she saw concern there. True. Unexpected. What happened? Nothing, she lied, hugging herself. Just a nightmare. He was silent for a moment, studying her. Then he walked to one of the chairs near the unlit fireplace and sat down, as if too exhausted to stand. He rested his elbows on his knees, buried his face in his hands. I can't feel this anymore, he said, his voice muffled. Your emotions, your fear, your pain, everything. He let out a harsh breath. It's driving me insane. She didn't know what to say. She stood by the window watching him, this creature of absolute power looking so human. I can try to control it, she offered, knowing it made no sense. How do you control emotion? How do you hide fear when fear is all you know? He chuckled, but there was no humor in the sound. Do you think I want you to control it? Do you think I want you to force yourself not to feel just to spare me inconvenience? He lifted his head, looked at her through the gloom. I just want to understand. I want to understand who you are, why you threw yourself in front of me, what you were thinking. I wasn't thinking, she admitted, the words spilling out before she could filter them. I just saw the arrow and I moved. It was instinct. Instinct, he repeated, as if testing the word. People don't have an instinct to throw themselves in front of death for strangers. That's sacrifice. Choice. It wasn't a choice, she insisted. It was... She stopped, searching for words that didn't exist. It was like something inside me knew, as if it had to be this way. He rose slowly, crossed the room, stopped in front of her. The proximity made the air dense, difficult to breathe. "Who are you?" he asked softly, his eyes searching her face for answers. "And don't tell me you're nobody. Don't tell me you're just a servant, because I'm starting to think you're much more than that." She looked away, her heart beating too fast. "I don't know who I am. I don't remember much of anything. Just work, just orders, just silence." "And before that?" He touched her chin again, forced her to look at him. "Before being a servant, you must have had a life, a family, something." The images returned. Fire, screams, hands. She closed her eyes tightly, trying to block them. "I don't know, I can't remember, it's all confusing." He released her, ran a hand through his hair. "There's something wrong with all of this. The arrow, the attack, and you." He turned to her again. "You appear out of nowhere, throw yourself in front of me, almost die, and now you're here, marked, bound to me. And no one knows where you came from, no one knows your true name. It's as if you've been erased." "Erased?" The word resonated strangely within her. "Yes, erased. As if someone deliberately tried to make you disappear, to hide who you are." He approached again, his voice growing more intense. "And the arrow that almost killed me? It wasn't a random attack, it was specific, planned. Someone knew I would be in that forest. Someone wanted me dead. And you?" He touched the mark on her nape, and she shivered at the contact. "You were there, at the exact moment, in the exact place." "You think I—" Indignation made her recoil. "You think I was part of the attack?" "No," he said firm. "No. If you were part of it, you wouldn't have thrown yourself in front of the arrow. But I think you are a piece of something bigger, something I don't yet understand." The door burst open. Guards entered first, followed by a tall man, dressed in formal attire, his face etched with age and severity. He had a natural authority, the kind that comes from years of command. "Your Majesty," the man said, his voice hard. "We need to talk. Now." The king turned slowly, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. "Councillor Sterling, I don't recall summoning you." "The council demands answers," Sterling said, ignoring the warning tone. His gaze slid to the Omega, and the disgust was instant and visible. "About her. About this situation." "Situation," the king repeated, and there was danger in the calmness of his voice. "Is that what you call my marked companion?" "Companion?" Sterling took a step forward, indignation blazing in his eyes. "She's an Omega with no lineage, no name, no worth, and you marked her, creating a scandal that is shaking the foundations of this kingdom." "The foundations of this kingdom have survived wars, betrayals, and death," the king said, each word sharp. "They will survive this." "Not when it defies all traditions," Sterling raised his voice. "You are the Alpha King. You have duties, responsibilities, and one of them is to choose a worthy companion. An Alpha of lineage, someone who brings strength to the throne, not shame." The Omega felt each word like a punch. Shame. That's what she was. Walking shame. "Leave," the king said, his voice low, dangerous. "I won't leave until you—" "I said leave!" The king's voice exploded, and with it came a wave of power so intense that the guards recoiled. The Omega herself felt it, even though she wasn't the target. A pressure in the air, a force that made her knees want to buckle, her head want to bow. Sterling paled, but held his ground. "The council will reconvene tomorrow, and you will have to answer for this. For her." He cast a final look of contempt at the Omega. "And perhaps it would be best if you decide whose side you're on. Your kingdom's side or a worthless Omega's." He left, the guards following him. The door closed, and the silence that remained was deafening. The king stood still, tense, his jaw locked, his hands clenched into fists. The Omega could see the struggle happening within him. Anger, frustration, something deeper she couldn't identify. You should send me back, she said, her voice small, to where I came from. It would be easier. For everyone. He turned to her so quickly she took a step back. Easier? You think anything about this is easy? He crossed the distance between them in 2 strides. Do you think I can just erase the bond, pretend it doesn't exist? You bear my mark. You are tied to me. And now the entire kingdom wants to know why. And do you know? She challenged, finding courage she didn't know she possessed. Do you know why you marked me? Because so far you've only told me it was to save me, but there were other ways. You could have let me die. You could have called a healer. You could have. I panicked. The words exploded from him, raw, honest, unexpected. When I saw you fall, the venom killing you, I panicked. And I acted. I didn't think of the consequences. I didn't think of what it would mean. I just thought I couldn't let you die. Not like that. Not because of me. The silence returned, but it was different. Laden with truth. With vulnerability. She looked at him. Truly looked. And saw not a king, but a man. A man who had made a mistake or a triumph she didn't know. But a man who was as trapped in this as she was. So now what? She asked, weary. The council won't accept this. The people won't accept it. And She touched the mark on her nape. I don't know how to live with this. He approached, stopping so close she had to tilt her head back to look at him. Then we'll figure it out together, he said, and there was a fierce determination in his voice, because I won't let them hurt you. And I won't let you leave. Why? She needed to understand. Why do you care? He touched her face, his thumb tracing the line of her jaw. The touch was soft, cautious, as if she was something precious. Because when you threw yourself in front of that arrow, something changed, and I still don't know what, but I will find out. And in that moment, in the gloom of that room, with the weight of the entire kingdom, pressing from outside, she believed him. The dawn brought with it a tension she could feel in her bones. The entire keep seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what would happen at the council meeting. The king had left before sunrise without saying where he was going, but she had felt when he drew away. The bond stretching, protesting, creating an uncomfortable emptiness in her chest. She was trying to eat something when the door opened. It wasn't a servant. It was a young man, dressed in simple but clean clothes, his face friendly. He carried folded clothes in his arms. Excuse the intrusion, he said, maintaining a respectful distance. But the king sent me to bring these to you. Said you can't keep wearing his clothes forever. She looked down. She was wearing one of his tunics, far too big, swallowing her, her face flushed with shame. Thank you, she murmured, taking the clothes. They were simple. A brown linen dress, a light cloak. But they were new, made for her. The man hesitated before leaving. You know? He began, then stopped as if measuring his words. A lot of people are talking about you. About what you did? I know, she said bitterly. That I'm a disgrace. That I have no place here. That... No, he interrupted, surprising her. It's not that. Well, not for everyone. He gave a small smile. Some people think you're brave. Crazy but brave. No one throws themselves in front of an arrow for nothing, and you saved the king, that counts. The words caught her off guard. She had been sure everyone hated her, that everyone saw her as an intruder, as a mistake, but maybe not everyone. What's your name? She asked. Caleb, he replied. I'm a squire. Well, Now I'm sort of the king's assistant. He scratched his head, looking embarrassed. He sent me to keep an eye on you, in case you need anything. Keeping an eye on me or watching me? The question came out sharper than she intended. Caleb chuckled. A bit of both, to be honest, but more the first. He grew serious again. Look, I don't know what's going on. No one really knows. But the king, he doesn't do things without reason. And if he marked you, if he wants you here, it's because there's a reason. Even if he doesn't understand what it is yet. He left before she could reply, leaving her alone again, but this time with something she hadn't had before. Hope. Small, fragile, but there. She changed her clothes, tied her hair as best she could, and for the first time in days, looked at herself in a mirror hanging on the wall. Her reflection startled her. She looked different, still thin, still pale, but there was something in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Determination, perhaps, or just exhaustion from being trampled. The mark on her nape was visible, red and swollen. The complex design she couldn't properly see but could feel. A mark of ownership, of a bond, of destiny. She was about to turn away from the mirror when she felt it. A sudden wave of rage that wasn't hers. It came through the bond, strong, hot, violent. He was feeling it, the king. And it wasn't ordinary rage, it was fury. Without thinking, she opened the door and left the room. Caleb was in the corridor talking to a guard and turned in surprise when he saw her. "Where is he?" she asked urgently. "The king. Where's the meeting?" "In the council chambers, but you can't—" "Where?" she insisted, and something in her voice made Caleb stop arguing. "East wing, 3rd floor, large double wooden door. But seriously, you shouldn't—" She was already running. The corridors blurred past, servants stepping aside in surprise as she rushed by. She didn't know the way, but the bond guided her, pulling her in the right direction, stronger with each step. She reached the double door, guards on both sides. They moved to block her, but she didn't stop. "He needs me," she said, and she didn't know how. She knew, but she did. "Let me pass." "The Omega is not authorized to—" one of the guards began. The door burst open from inside. The king stood there, his face a mask of contained rage, his eyes glinting golden. He looked at her, and something in his gaze softened, just a little. "Let her in," he ordered. The guard stepped aside. She entered, and the door closed behind her. The council chamber was enormous, circular, with a large table in the center. Around it, sitting or standing, were about 15 people, men and women of various ages, all dressed in formal attire, all looking at her with a mixture of shock and indignation. "This is unacceptable." Sterling rose from his chair, slamming his hands on the table. "You bring her here, to a council meeting." "She has every right to be here," the king said, his voice dangerously calm. "Since apparently you are discussing her fate." "Her fate?" A woman stood up. Older, her hair pulled into elaborate braids, her face severe. "We are discussing the fate of the kingdom, and this scandal you have created is threatening everything we have built." "Scandal," the king repeated, as if testing the word. "Interesting, because to me the only scandal here is the entire council trying to tell me with whom I can or cannot bond." "You are the king!" Sterling shouted. "You don't have the luxury of personal choices. Every decision you make affects thousands of people, and this decision," he pointed at the Omega with disdain, "this decision shows weakness. It shows you can be influenced, manipulated." "Manipulated?" The king took a step forward, and the air in the room grew heavy. "She threw herself in front of an arrow to save me. Where is the manipulation in that?" "Perhaps she knew about the attack," a voice said from the back of the room. A younger man with calculating eyes. "Perhaps she was planted. To gain your trust. To get close." The accusation cut through the air like a blade. The Omega felt all heads turn to her, all eyes judging her. "That's ridiculous," the king said, but there was a new tension in his voice. Doubt. Tiny, but there. "Is it?" Sterling approached her, circling like a predator. "Then tell me, Omega. Where did you come from? What is your true name? Who was your family?" "I don't—" she began, her voice catching. "I don't know. I don't remember." "Convenient," Sterling said, smiling without humor. "You don't remember anything. You appear out of nowhere. You throw yourself in front of the king at the exact moment, and now you're marked within his inner circle." He turned to the king. And you don't see the problem with that? The king looked at her, and for the first time since they met, she saw uncertainty in his eyes. He didn't fully trust her. How could he? She didn't even trust herself. "Let me investigate her," Lady Eleanor Vance said. "Lady Eleanor Vance has contacts. We can find out who she is, where she came from, if there are conspiracies involved." "No," the king said, firm. "No one will investigate her as if she were a criminal." "Then you prefer to risk the kingdom?" Sterling pressed. "Risk your life for an Omega with no history?" "I risk my life every day," the king retorted. "And I don't need the council's approval for that." "But you need its support," Sterling said, and now his voice had a threatening tone. "And that support is weakening. The Pacts are questioning your leadership. The nobles are restless. If you don't resolve this, if you don't prove you're in control, there could be consequences." "Are you threatening me?" The king's voice dropped to a low, dangerous tone. "I am warning you," Sterling corrected, "as someone who swore to protect this kingdom. And sometimes protecting the kingdom means protecting the king from himself." The silence that followed was dense, heavy with unspoken threats. The Omega couldn't take it anymore. "Do you want me to leave?" Her voice came out clear, firm, cutting through the silence. "Is that it? Do you want me to disappear so everything can go back to normal?" "It would be for the best," Lady Eleanor Vance said, but there was no cruelty in her voice, only cold pragmatism. "For everyone, including you." She looked at the king, searching for what? Denial, defense, but he was quiet, his face a mask, impossible to read. "Then perhaps you should investigate me," she said, turning to Sterling. "Find out who I am, where I came from, because I want to know too. I want to understand why I'm here, why I threw myself in front of that arrow, why I bear this mark." She touched her nape, feeling the burning. "And if you discover I'm part of some conspiracy, some plan, then you can judge me. But until then, stop treating me as if I chose this, as if I want to destroy the kingdom, because I chose nothing. All of this just happened." The silence returned, but now it was different. Respectful, surprised. The king looked at her and something changed in his face. Pride, perhaps, or recognition. "It's decided then," he said, turning to the council. "Lady Eleanor Vance will investigate her origins. Discreetly. And in the meantime, no one touches her. No one threatens her. No one treats her as a prisoner. She remains under my protection. Understood?" Sterling opened his mouth to protest, but another councillor touched his arm, shaking his head. It wasn't worth the fight. Not now. "Understood, Your Majesty," Sterling said, but his voice was full of unspoken promises. The king took the Omega's hand, the first voluntary touch, gentle but firm. "Come," he said softly. "Let's get out of here." They left the chamber together, leaving the council in tense silence. In the corridor, away from prying eyes, he stopped, turned to her. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "Put yourself out there like that." "I did," she corrected. "Because they're right. I'm a mystery. And mysteries are dangerous. So let them find out. Let them investigate. Because I want answers too." He studied her for a long moment. "Are you not afraid of what they might discover?" "I'm terrified," she admitted. "But I'm also tired of living without knowing who I am." He almost smiled. Almost. "You're stronger than you look." "Or more desperate," she retorted. He held her face with both hands, forcing her to look up. "Whatever they discover, whatever you are, it doesn't change what you did. It doesn't change that you saved me. And it doesn't change that you are now mine." The words should have sounded possessive. They should have sounded like imprisonment. But the way he said them, they sounded like a promise. Protection. And for the first time since waking in that room, she believed that maybe, just maybe, she would survive all of this. The investigation began the next day. Lady Eleanor Vance arrived with 2 assistants carrying scrolls, ancient maps, and dusty records. She set up a kind of headquarters in a smaller room near the king's chambers and began to work with cold efficiency. The Omega was called for her first interview at noon. The room was claustrophobic, windowless, lit only by candles that made shadows dance on the walls. Lady Eleanor Vance sat behind a table, her sharp eyes studying her as if she were a puzzle to be solved. "Sit," she said, pointing to a simple chair on the other side of the table. The Omega obeyed, her hands sweating, her heart racing. "Let's start at the beginning," Eleanor Vance said, picking up a quill. "What's your first memory?" She closed her eyes, trying to pull something solid from the fog that was her past. "Waking in a small, cold room. Someone telling me to get up. To work." "How old were you?" "I don't know. Small. Very small." "And before that? Nothing?" She hesitated. The images returned. Fragments, blurs. "Fire," she said, her voice hoarse. "I remember fire and screams, many screams." Eleanor Vance wrote something down. "Whose screams?" "I don't know. Voices I no longer recognize." She opened her eyes, met Eleanor Vance's hard gaze. "It's like it was erased, like someone took my memory and ripped out pieces." "Or protected you from something traumatic," Eleanor Vance suggested, but there was no compassion in her voice, only analysis. "What else?" "Sometimes I dream of a garden, large, with flowers I don't know the name of, and a woman singing, but when I wake up I can't remember her face. I can't quite remember her voice." "Your mother? Maybe." "I don't know." The questions continued for hours. Eleanor Vance was relentless, digging into every corner of her memory, searching for clues, connections, anything that could explain who she was. But the more she asked, the clearer it became that there were no easy answers. It was as if her life had begun in that cold room, with no prior history, no roots. When she was finally released, she was exhausted, her head throbbing. She returned to the king's room, because apparently it was her room now too, and found Caleb waiting outside. "Lady Eleanor Vance is intense, huh?" he said, making a sympathetic face. "That's one word for it," she murmured, entering. He followed her, maintaining a respectful distance. "The king sent word that he'll be in meetings the rest of the day, but he asked me to stay here in case you need anything." She turned to him. "Don't you think it's strange, him sending you to watch an Omega?" Caleb shrugged. "I think half the things that happen in this keep are strange. But the king trusts me, and if he thinks you need protection, then you need it." "Protection from what?" she asked, but she suspected the answer. "From the people who don't want you here," Caleb said simply, "which is pretty much everyone with any power." She sat on the edge of the bed, weariness weighing her down. "Do you think they'll discover something about me?" "I think if there's something to discover, Lady Eleanor Vance will find it," he said. "She's determined." "That's one word for it," she repeated, coaxing a smile from him. He was silent for a moment, then asked, hesitantly, "Can I ask you something? Do you regret it? Throwing yourself in front of the arrow?" She thought about it. Regret. It would be easy to say yes, that if she could go back in time, she would have stood still, let fate take its course. But it would be a lie. "No," she said, and was surprised by the certainty in her own voice. "I don't regret it, even with all of this. Even if it's complicated. I don't regret saving him." "Why?" She had no answer. Or she did, but couldn't put it into words. The door opened and the king entered, looking tired but relieved to find her there. Caleb bowed quickly and left, leaving them alone. "How was it?" the king asked, taking off his heavy cloak. "Exhausting," she admitted. "She asked everything, but I have no answers. It's like my life started from nothing." He approached, sat beside her, on the bed. The proximity made the bond pulse, warming her. "Eleanor Vance will discover something. She always does." "And what if it's something bad?" she asked, turning to face him. What if they discover I'm dangerous in some way? Then we'll deal with it, he said simply. Together. The word hung in the air between them. Together. As if they were a team. As if it wasn't just her facing the world alone. He touched the mark on her nape, his fingers tracing the design she couldn't see. The touch was soft, careful, and sent shivers down her spine. This mark, he said thoughtfully, it's more than I expected. What do you mean? Normally, a bond mark is superficial. It creates a connection, but not so deep. But this... He pressed lightly, and she felt the burning pulse. This is different. I feel you all the time. Your emotions, sometimes even your thoughts. It's like... He stopped, searching for words. It's like you've become a part of me. She didn't know what to say. She felt the same. He was always there, a constant presence in the back of her mind, comforting and unsettling at the same time. Is that normal? She asked. No, it's not. The silence stretched, heavy with meaning. Something happened today, he said, changing the subject. In the council room, Sterling brought information about the attack, about the arrow. She straightened, paying attention. The arrow was made with specific materials, rare, only found in one region, the northern lowlands. And the venom. He paused, his jaw locked. The venom was black hemlock mixed with greyish herbs, a combination only a specific group knows how to make, trained assassins, mercenaries. Someone hired mercenaries to kill you. The shock was genuine. Not just to kill, me, to ensure I died. That venom, it has no known cure. If you hadn't... He stopped, let out a breath. I would be dead. But who? Who wants you dead? That's the question, he said bitterly. I have enemies. Every king does. But this was planned. Specific. Someone knew where I would be. Knew about the hunt. Knew the exact moment. A traitor, she concluded. Inside the keep. Yes. And now I have to find out who before they try again. He looked at her, and there was something vulnerable in his eyes. And you put yourself in the middle of all of this. You became a target too. I already was a target, she said, remembering his words the night she woke up. You said the arrow wasn't meant for you. It was meant for what I represent. What does that mean? He was silent for so long that she thought he wouldn't answer. But then he spoke, his voice low, laden. 15 years ago, there was a massacre. A noble family from the northern lowlands was annihilated. Their house was burned, everyone killed, their lineage erased from the records. It was brutal, swift, silent. And we never found out who was behind it. She felt something cold run down her spine. What does that have to do with me? That family. They had a daughter, a child. When they found the bodies, she wasn't there. They presumed she had died in the fire, but they never found her body. The room seemed to tilt. You think I think you bear marks that aren't just mine, he said, taking her hand, turning it palm up. There were old marks there, small burns, thin scars. Marks of fire, of survival, and I think someone tried to hide you, to erase you, to turn you into nobody so no one would look for you. Tears came before she could hold them back. Because it made sense. Everything made sense. The lack of memories, the feeling of loss, the dreams of fire and screams. If I am who you think I am, she said, her voice trembling, then who took me from there? Who saved me? That's the question Eleanor Vance is trying to answer. He wiped a tear from her face with his thumb. But there's more. That family, they were allies of my father. They were powerful, and their daughter was betrothed to me. The world stopped. What? An agreement made when we were children. She was 5, I was 10. It was political, strategic. But after the massacre, the agreement died with her. Or, he looked at her intensely. Or it didn't. She pulled her hand away, stood up, started pacing. You're saying I could be your promised bride, that all of this was planned? I don't know, he admitted, frustrated. I don't know anything. I only know that you appeared. You threw yourself in front of me. And now you bear my mark. And someone wants you dead. Wants us both dead. She stopped, turned to him. And if it's true? What if I am her? What does that change? He stood up, went to her. It changes everything. It changes that you're not just an Omega. You're an heiress. You have lands, you have titles, you have power. And you have enemies who thought they had eliminated you 15 years ago. And now that I'm alive, she said, understanding, they'll try again. Yes. She took a deep breath, trying to process everything. So what do we do? He took her face in, his hands. We prove who you are, we protect you, and we find out who destroyed your family before they can destroy you again. And what if I don't want to be an heiress? What if I just want to exist? It's not your choice, he said, gentle but firm. It never was. Your blood defines you. Your lineage defines you. And now that they know you're alive, they won't stop. She closed her eyes, feeling the weight of all this, an entire life lived as nobody. And now suddenly she was somebody. Somebody important, somebody dangerous. I'm scared, she confessed. Me too, he said. But we're in this together now, and I will protect you, even if it costs me everything. She opened her eyes, met his golden gaze, and believed him. The confirmation came 3 days later. Lady Eleanor Vance entered the council chamber with a pile of documents and an expression that blended triumph and concern. The king was there and had insisted the Omega be present. She sat beside him, trying to ignore the hostile stares of the councillors. I found it, Eleanor Vance announced, placing the papers on the table. Everything. The lineage, the dates, the birthmarks, everything. The silence in the room was absolute. She is Lady Elara Sinclair, Eleanor Vance continued, and the Omega felt the name reverberate through her like a distant bell. Sole daughter of Lord Kendrick and Lady Anya Sinclair of the Northern Lowlands, heiress to 3 territories, 2 fortresses, and rights over vital trade routes. Impossible, Sterling rose. The Sinclairs were wiped out, all of them. No one was left. Almost no one, Eleanor Vance corrected, looking at the Omega, at Elara. She survived. Someone took her from there before the fire reached her room, and then hid. Her. Changed her name, erased her memories, turned her into a servant. Who? The king asked, his voice tense. Who did this? I'm still investigating, Eleanor Vance admitted. But I have leads. A woman was seen leaving the Sinclair territory the night of the massacre, carrying a child. No one paid it any mind at the time because everything was in chaos. But now it means someone saved her, the king completed. Someone who knew about the attack before it happened. The Omega Elara sat paralyzed. That name, Elara. It sounded strange and familiar at the same time. Like a garment that once fit, but now felt uncomfortable. There's more, Eleanor Vance said hesitantly. The Sinclair crest. It was... She picked up one of the papers, showed it. It was an old, detailed drawing. A golden thorn flower intertwined with a crown of leaves, and the birthmarks of the women in the family were always in the same place. She turned, pulled her hair aside, exposing the nape of her neck, and there, partially covered by the king's mark, was another mark. Older, subtler. A small birthmark in the shape of a flower. The councillors leaned in to see. Some gasped. Others simply remained in shocked silence. It's her, one of them murmured. It really is her. This changes everything, another said. If she is Lady Sinclair, if she has a legitimate claim to those lands, then she is not just an Omega, Sterling finished, and for the first time since he had entered that room, he looked at her with something beyond disdain. It was calculation, evaluation. She is one of the wealthiest nobles of the North. Ilara felt nausea rise. It was all too much, too fast. She had spent her entire life being nobody, and now suddenly she had a name, title, land. She had a past. "And the agreement?" a councilwoman asked, looking at the king. "Is the marriage agreement made between your father and Lord Sinclair still valid?" The king looked at Ilara, and she saw conflict in his eyes. "Technically, yes, but—" "There are no buts," Sterling interrupted, and now there was a gleam of opportunity in his eyes. "The agreement was never dissolved. It was merely suspended due to circumstances, but if Lady Sinclair is alive, if she is who Eleanor Vance says she is, then the agreement comes back, into force." "You're talking about me as if I'm not here," Ilara said, her voice stronger than she felt. "As if I'm property to be negotiated." "You are a noble now," Eleanor Vance said, not unkindly. "And nobles rarely have control over their own destinies. It's the price of power." "I don't want power," Ilara retorted. "I just want—" "It doesn't matter what you want," Sterling cut in. "What matters is what is right, what is legal. And legally, you are betrothed to the king. And he looked at the king with triumph. "He has already marked you. Already. Formed a bond. Which means, whether you like it or not, you are already bound in every possible way." The king stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "I will not force her to anything." "You don't need to force her," Sterling said. "It is already done. The mark, the bond, the ancient agreement. Everything aligns perfectly. She is your promised bride, your marked companion, and now we discover she is also heiress to vital territories. This is not a problem. This is a solution." Ilara looked around the room, seeing the shift in the councillors' faces. Before there had been disdain, hostility. Now there was interest, calculation, approval. Because now she wasn't just an Omega. She was valuable. And that filled her with more disgust than when they had scorned her. "I need to leave here," she said, standing. "I need to think." "You cannot simply walk out of a council meeting," Sterling began, but the king cut him off with a look. "She can, and she will." He turned to her. "I'll go with you." "No," she said, backing away. "I need to be alone, please." He hesitated, then nodded. She practically ran out, hearing voices rise. Behind her as soon as the door closed, she ran through the corridors without direction, just wanting to get away. She ended up in the inner gardens, a green space surrounded by high walls, tranquil, empty. She sat on a stone bench, buried her face in her hands, trying to breathe. Ilara Sinclair. That's who she was. She had family, she had history, she had a name. She had had everything taken from her. "I thought I'd find you here." She lifted her head. It was Caleb, standing a few feet away, respectful as always. "How did you know where I was?" she asked, wiping away tears she hadn't realized were falling. "You always go to open places when you're feeling suffocated," he said, shrugging. "I noticed that these past few days." She almost smiled. "You pay a lot of attention." "It's my job." He approached but did not sit. "Can I say something, even if it's not my place?" "Say it." "You thinking you're somebody now doesn't change who you were yesterday. It doesn't change that you threw yourself in front of that arrow. It doesn't change that you're brave. It just means that now you have a name to put to all of it." "But it's not my name," she protested. "It doesn't feel like mine. It feels like it belongs to someone else." "Then make it yours," Caleb said simply. "Take that name, that history, that past, and make them serve you. Not the other way around." She looked at him. This boy who was only a few years older than her, but who somehow possessed more wisdom than half the council. "Thank you," she said. He smiled. "Anytime you need it." Before she could say anything more, shouts erupted from the other side of the gardens, guards running, alarmed voices, and then she felt, through the bond, pain, sharp, violent, not hers, his. She jumped up, started running. Caleb followed her, yelling for her to wait, but she couldn't. The bond pulled, screamed, demanded she go to him. She reached the main courtyard and saw chaos. Guards running, nobles recoiling in fear. And in the center of it all, the king. On his knees, one hand pressed against his side. Blood streamed between his fingers, staining his tunic. "No!" she cried, running to him. Guards tried to hold her back, but she broke, free. She fell to her knees beside him, her hands trembling. "What happened?" she demanded, looking around. "Who did this?" "Assassin," a guard replied, holding an unconscious man on the ground. "Appeared out of nowhere, attacked the king before we could react." The king looked at her, his golden eyes clouded with pain. "You," he managed to say. "They wanted to get to you." "What?" "The man shouted your name," another guard explained. "He yelled Elara Sinclair before attacking. He was trying to get to you through him." The horror hit her like a punch. This was her fault. He had been hurt because of her. "We need to get him inside," she said, trying to sound firmer than she felt. "Now, call healers." Guards moved, carefully lifting the king. He groaned in pain, and she felt every pang through the bond as if it were her own. She followed them, her mind racing. Someone had discovered who she was, and they were willing to kill the king to get to her. The war she didn't know she was fighting had just become very, very real. She didn't leave his side. While healers worked, while the council met in emergency session, while guards interrogated the captured assassin, she stayed there, holding his hand, feeling every wave of pain through the bond. The wound was deep, but not fatal. The blade had grazed his ribs, missing vital organs. "Luck," the healers said. But Elara knew it wasn't luck. It was the bond. She had felt the danger even before the attack, had screamed a warning in her mind that he had heard, making him move at the last instant. When they finally let him sleep, when the room became silent and empty, she lay beside him on the bed, careful not to touch his wound, and cried. She cried for everything, for the family she never knew, for the life she lost, for the man who was now bleeding because of her. "Don't cry." His voice, raspy and weak, made her lift her head. He was awake, looking at her through half-closed eyes. "You should be sleeping," she said, wiping her tears. "Hard to sleep when I can feel your pain," he murmured. "The bond works both ways, remember?" She almost smiled. "How are you feeling?" "Like I've been stabbed," he said, but there was dry humor in his voice. "But I'll survive. It's not the first time." "It shouldn't have happened," she said, her voice breaking. "You were attacked because of me." "No, I was attacked because of whoever wants you dead. It's different." He tried to sit up, groaned, gave up. They interrogated the assassin. He talked. And he confirmed what we suspected. He was hired by someone within the council. Someone who knew about your true identity even before Eleanor Vance confirmed it. Someone who was there when your family was massacred. The air left her lungs. "Who?" "Sterling." The revelation left her speechless. Sterling. The man on the council who questioned them, who pretended to defend the kingdom. "He was an accomplice to the massacre," the king continued, his voice hardening. "He and other nobles wanted the Sinclair lands, so they hired mercenaries, eliminated your family, took the territories, and they thought they had erased your entire lineage. But someone saved me," Elara said, the pieces clicking into place. "Someone took me out of there." "Your nursemaid," he said. "A woman named Martha. She sensed the attack, grabbed you while you slept, fled through the secret passage, and then she hid you. She turned you into nobody. Because if you were somebody, they would find you and finish the job." Tears returned, but now they were different. They were for Martha, for a woman who sacrificed everything to save a child who wasn't even her own. "Is she still alive?" Elara asked, hopeful. "I don't know. Eleanor Vance is looking, but it's been 15 years. A long time." Silence fell between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. "And now?" she asked. "Is Sterling going to be arrested?" "More than that." He'll be tried for treason, conspiracy, murder. And when he's convicted... He paused, and she saw the darkness in his eyes. He'll pay with his life. And the lands? The territories? They're yours. By birthright. You are Lady Alara Sinclair, and no one can take that from you. She was silent, processing. She had gone from nobody to heiress in a matter of days. It was dizzying. And what about the agreement? She asked softly. The marriage promise? He looked at her for a long moment. Do you want it to be valid? I don't know what I want, she admitted. Everything happens so fast, I barely know you. You barely know me. And now, everyone expects us to just accept it, marry, rule together. That's not what I want, he said, and she felt a pang of pain that wasn't physical. But then he continued, I don't want you to marry me out of obligation, out of politics, out of an agreement made when you were 5. I want it to be a choice, your choice. The words caught her off guard. You're saying... I'm saying the agreement can go to hell, he said firm. If you want to stay, stay with me. Be my true companion. Let it be because you chose it, not because you were forced. But what about the council and the expectations? To hell with them. He took her hand, interlaced their fingers. I didn't mark you because it was politically advantageous. I marked you because I panicked at the thought of losing you. And now that I know who you are, now that I understand the web we're caught in, I don't want you to stay out of obligation. I want you to stay because you want to. She looked at their intertwined fingers, at the mark on her nape that still burned faintly, at the man in the bed who had been stabbed trying to protect her. I don't know if it's love, she said, honest. I don't know if it's the bond, if it's gratitude, if it's just a need not to be alone. But I know that when you were attacked, when I felt your pain, She stopped, searched for words. I felt like a part of me was dying too. And that has to mean something. It means the bond is real, he said. It means that, whether we like it or not, we are now bound in a way that goes beyond politics or agreements. But is it enough, she asked, to build something, to be more than just survival? I don't know, he admitted, but I'd like to try, if you want to. She was silent, thinking of everything she had lost, everything she had gained, everything that could be. One condition, she finally said. What? I want to find Martha. I want to find the woman who saved me, and if she's still alive, I want her to have a place here in the keep, with me. Done, he said without hesitation. Eleanor Vance is already looking. If she's alive, we'll find her. And I want time, Ilara continued. I don't want to marry tomorrow. I don't want to be rushed just because the council finds it convenient. I want to get to know you, truly, not as king and subject, as people. Also done. He pulled her closer, careful of his wound. We have time, and we will use it. She nestled beside him, listening to his heartbeat. Strong, steady, alive. Do you know what will happen now? She asked. With Sterling arrested, with the lands returning to me? Political war, he said, tired. Other families will try to claim them. Some will question your legitimacy. It will be a fight. But you'll be there? The question came out small, vulnerable. I'll be there, he promised. Every step, every fight. You're not alone in this. Together, she echoed his word from days ago. Together. The door suddenly opened. Caleb burst in, breathless, his eyes shining. Your Majesty, Lady Alara! Lady Eleanor Vance found something. They straightened, attentive. Martha, Caleb said, smiling, she's alive. And she wants to see you. Ilara's heart leaped. Where? She was living in a village 3 days' travel from here. Eleanor Vance has already sent for her. She'll arrive tomorrow. Tears came again, but now they were tears of relief. Martha was alive. The woman who saved her was alive. Thank you, she said to Caleb. "Thank you for telling us." He smiled, made an awkward bow, and left. Ilara turned to the king, saw the soft smile on his lips. "It seems things are starting to fall into place," he said. "It does," she agreed. They were silent for a while, just existing in the same space, bound by something stronger than agreements or politics. 3 days later, in the council chamber, Sterling was tried and convicted. Other complicit nobles were exposed. The Sinclair lands were officially returned to Ilara, and for the first time in 15 years, justice was served. Martha arrived that same week, a middle-aged woman, grey-haired, with kind eyes. When she saw Ilara, she collapsed in tears, embracing the girl who had been a child the last time they met. "I thought I'd lost you forever," Martha cried. "I thought hiding you wouldn't be enough." "You saved me," Ilara said, clutching the woman who was her mother in heart, if not in blood. "You saved me from everything." And in that embrace, Ilara finally felt something she hadn't felt since childhood. Home, not a place, but a feeling. 2 months later, in a hall filled with nobles, guards, and common folk, Ilara officially accepted her titles and lands, and by her side, the king. Not as husband yet, that would come with time, with choice, but as companion, protector, partner. When she looked at the crowd, she saw faces that once scorned her now bowing in respect. She saw Caleb smiling proudly, she saw Martha crying tears of joy, and she saw the king by her side, hand intertwined with hers, looking at her with something that could, with time, become love. She had been nobody. She had been erased, hidden, turned into a shadow. But she had refused to die. She had thrown herself in front of death to save a king. And in that act, she had awakened not just a bond, but a truth buried for 15 years. She was Ilara Sinclair. She was an heiress. She was a survivor. She was strong. And finally, for the first time in her life, she was free to choose who she wanted to be. Leaving the hall as the event ended and people dispersed, the king stopped, held her face with both hands, and whispered, "Thank you." "Why?" she asked. "For throwing yourself in front of that arrow, for saving me, for being you." She smiled, her first true smile in weeks. "Thank you, for giving me a reason to live beyond survival." He leaned in and for the first time kissed her, soft, respectful, promising, and the mark on her nape pulsed, warm and alive, recognizing the touch, sealing the moment. It was the beginning of something new, something chosen, something theirs.